screen that plugs into a computer that is a platform for any number of other useful things and engagement devices.
And the other thing to say is also, our hope is to make, I guess, what sits on the screen, as the standard look very visually attractive. And so the hope also is that not every passerby that walks past the window of DSNI is already connected to DSNI. And I think that we can safely assume that many people who walk down the street don't already have some connection to DSNI. So the hope is to make it visually attractive enough, as a standing point that people will be drawn to and see other people doing it and want to know what that is.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay, so not all technology has to be high-tech, is I think the message of our second presentation. So I'm going to bring up to the front, so please come up, Jeff, Khalil, Hannah, Logan, Shaw, and Victoria. The challenge presented here, are you guys all right? You're right. The challenge presented here is DSNI has this wonderful, proud history of planning its own future, creating its own destiny. Now, as it's moving forward into its next era of its village campus, how could it best envision where to go next? All right, so you guys ready?
One slide back.
One slide back, yes?
There we go.
Question mark, question mark. Okay, go.
So this is a blank space. And empty spaces for us are exciting because they're opportunities. Empty spaces raise lots of questions. For example, who decides what to do with the space? Obviously, what do you put in the space? Also, who owns the space? How do you decide what to put in the space, etc. Yeah. So these are all questions that we're very excited about answering. So I'm Jeff. I'm a Harvard College senior. We have Hannah, Victoria, Shaw, Leo, and Logan on the computer over there. We're going to talk a little bit about visioning and what to do. So at the beginning of the class, we were presented with the following challenge: to provide tools that help DSNI communicate and hear from Dudley residents, especially for those to whom they currently are not connected. We have sort of reinterpreted that as develop an innovative tool that encourages idea creation and feedback on community visioning from its residents. So I don't want to walk through all the major historical examples of community visioning that DSNI has done, because there are several of them. But over time, between 1987 and today, we've seen a lot of technological change. Some of them are things we take for granted. The digital photographs, for example. In 1987, digital photography did not exist. The internet did not really exist beyond the Pentagon in 1987. In 2012, there are a lot more ways that what we would consider to be low-tech ways, the digital photos and the internet, that we can use to sort of solicit feedback from members of the community. And one of the first things we did when thinking about this problem was to solicit feedback from members of DSNI and broader technology community. So, talking about that.
So like Jeff said, this year DSNI is embarking on its next stage of formal visioning process, I believe officially the fourth one. And like Jeff said, in order to understand some of the barriers to the typical process of community visioning, we want to talk to some people who know a little bit more about it. So we talked first to Eric Gordon, who's a professor at Emerson College and director of the Engagement Labs. And one of the main things we learned about with him was really talking about outreach and barriers to participation. We also talked to Dana Whiteside, who's the director of the Boston Redevelopment Authority. And with him, we talked a lot about how do we capture all the voices in the neighborhood, from elderly to the youth, and also how do we transition from uses of non-technology to technology. With Ben Berkowitz, founder of CPIC.com, we emphasize sort of the framing, the importance of the framing of the message, how to make it relatable and really encourage participation when you do things of communication. And then with May Louie, again, director of leadership development and capacity building, really just to understand DSNI's past efforts in order to sort of, if we want to complement the current ones, we want to know where things are going. So this helped us identify some of the core issues that face the community visioning process. And there are many, but really to us it boiled down to a few really core issues. The first was this issue of inclusivity. How do you lower the participation barrier to get people to contribute their ideas, especially people who have never felt like they didn't ask, or they never otherwise felt like this is a relevant process to them. The second sort of core issue, I think, was really how do you generate new ideas, how do you spark creativity, and how do you foster that while also sort of balancing that conclusion that you set at the end. And the third is how do you, again, incorporate new people. So as we worked through the design process, we sort of started pie in the sky, literally, throwing ideas like a flip that many of the classmates have heard about. But different games, different ideas, everything from a game to a mentorship program between elderly and younger people, such that they can not only share ideas around community vision, but also in a neighborhood like DSNI where history and sort of the unique identity of the neighborhood is very important for a chance for older members to share with younger people who may not have experienced that in the past. So we went through these different ideas, which led us to sort of where we are now for our first thing.
So this is a vacant lot in Dudley, and we came to Dudley a couple times. We looked around and got a sense of the community so we could help start to address this visioning challenge. And we tried to put ourselves in the community. So as a resident of Dudley, you step out the door, you look around, you have your stores, you have your schools, you have your other houses, you walk to school, you walk to work. These are the kinds of things you see. I mean, you see a lot around the community, but you can walk through and start to imagine the kind of community you might want in 5 years or 10 years.
And so as citizens, it's easy to envision what this block would become. So imagine this, a plexiglass board attached to a truck, rolling from location to location in the community, and with a still arm camera, a stop motion camera, capturing images of whatever is drawn on the board. And so anyone can approach this transparent board. They can see what exists behind it, this vacant lot, and draw what image they think, what they think could happen there one day. It is a simple but elegant way of envisioning the future and of capturing and creating new and different ideas.
So we envisioned this to debut at the August Multicultural Festival. We think that that's a place where the community is already going to come together and we can sort of start the visioning process together in the community. So we envisioned the board going to a few different places on that day within the festival. So this is the first example. And I mean, you can see here we imagine a storefront, a marketplace, a Wi-Fi hotspot. You could just as easily have put this over a vacant lot and drawn in a basketball court, or put it over a parking lot and drawn in a playground or a community center. It really is whatever you can imagine. And the idea behind this, like Victoria said, is taking the pen and pencil concept and making it bigger and making it about dreaming and about literally looking at your community and drawing in what you see for the future. So we think the big, broader core issues, which is what Shaw touched on, are new ideas and new people. And we want to find a way to spark creativity on all levels in the community. So this idea is really about getting the wheels turning, because whether you're the person who draws 5 pictures all over the community and you love it and you have tons of ideas, or you're the person who walks by, sees a picture of a basketball court or a taco truck, and thinks for the first time about what could be in that lot, for you or for your family or for your friends. There are different levels of engagement to this idea, and as part of trying to reach out to the broader community, that's what it's all about.
And so one of the other key challenges that Sean talked about was this challenge of how to be bringing new people in who haven't really felt like they could step into this, and who perhaps have to sort out childcare at home and it's just difficult and their time constrained. So one of the things about this idea is that it's a non-intimidating, fun, very low-cost thing to participate in. It's literally something that you can do just as you go about your day. It's a little art. It's more to work. And we also we're really excited about the idea that this process could bring in not just young people,
love the fact that some people will go and like draw 5 things on the board, but also that it might just include someone who's busy going about their day, but even just seeing it, seeing the board and being told to be, that in itself is an exciting way of engaging them. And the other thing about this is that all ideas carry equal weight. So whether you are an elementary school student or whether you've been a hardcore DSI community member whether you are someone who's shy, who's outspoken, and whether you speak English, Spanish, or Cape Verdean Creole, this is something that you can engage, participate in. So, so we see this as being a process, a new and kind of fun way of engaging more broadly in the community.
Okay. Oh, wait,
Do a few more slides.
Oh, I thought you were looking at me like,
Oh, no.
Sorry, signaling Logan.
Please go on. It is great. You know, you might go out there and get all these ideas. What do you do with all these ideas? Right. After the day, after the cultural day, you get all these drawings. What do you do with them? So we came. What we thought was very important was to have different channels to reach different parts of the community, not just those who you had the chance to announce that day. So one thing is for the young, having a Facebook page where they can, like the drawing, speak most to them. Yeah. And using the storefront touch screen that the previous group presented, and having it scroll through the different images, and even potentially down the track using the touch screen as a voting mechanism. For this block, which 3 ideas do you like the most? Next. We also envisioned the different sites throughout Dudley that you might see posters that have, say, the 2 or 3 kind of most common or best or most feasible ideas for that particular site, and that you could then run an SMS text voting mechanism. And finally, of course, the community meeting. This idea of a plexiglass board is a lot of places for traditional ways and of dialogue and bringing people together. It instead serves to actually elicit new perspectives and spark new discussions.
So this idea is all about dreaming and imagination, but we need to ground it in reality, and here's our cost analysis. We think we can do 3 plexiglass boards for under $4,000 to start on the multicultural day. Here's how it breaks down. We have plexiglass boards, the truck, the camera, the nuts and bolts at the top. Then the promotion costs. One of our experts, Ben Berkowitz, talked to us a lot about the importance of a PR campaign, as in the newspapers, radio stuff, just things to engage the whole community leading up to the Multicultural Festival. And then at the festival itself, T-shirts, prizes, a raffle, all different kinds of ways to engage the community while they're there with you. You have this sort of one-day shot to really get this idea rolling. And then the follow-up, site posters and SMS voting service that Victoria talked about. All of this that are relatively low cost for potentially big ideas going forward. And finally, we have our timeline. So as we talked about, the early August 2012 Multicultural Fest would be where these plexiglass make their debut. And we recruit volunteers to staff the board. We run a PR campaign moving up to that, but could be all integrated into the Multicultural Festival and what is involved leading up to that already in the community. We have the festival itself and the prizes and incentives, the data collection. The immediate post-festival is the idea of dissemination and feedback through the different channels we suggested, or any more we can think of to really engage the community at any level that we can. And then incorporating the designs into a broader visioning process that we really hope would be sustaining and continue for years, potentially. So, do you have any questions? No? Otherwise, thank you so much.
Questions for this group? Pause. All right, let's move on. Thank you, guys. Something we do during each class is to ask students to present some new idea that has something to do with technology and governance. We have one of those presentations today, so I want to call up Tara, Helena, and Caroline to talk to us about their innovation presentation. This is, you can think of this as intermission, but it's an intellectual intermission in our series of presentations.
Okay, so I'm going to kick us off. We are going to talk about Patients Like Me today. Patients Like Me is a data-driven social networking health site which enables its members who all have some sort of chronic disease to share their condition, treatment, and symptom information online, and they can monitor their health that way. They can find people who have a similar condition to them, and they can really engage with patients like them through this network. Go to the next slide. So this all started due to Stephen Haywood. Patients Like Me started in 2004. Stephen Haywood is actually the son of an MIT professor, and he was diagnosed with ALS, or otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease, when he was 29. ALS sufferers have about a 5-year prognosis after diagnosis, and so his whole family essentially dropped everything and committed their lives to finding ways to hasten treatments and cures essentially for this disease. And so this is him sort of as his disease had progressed. And what the start of this process was for them was to build out a nonprofit that did biotech research, and I'll get to that in a minute. What they also did, if you go to the next page, is really engage the media in this story about ALS. There's a book written by a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, his brother's keeper, which is about Stephen and his family's pathway through finding effective treatments for ALS, and then a movie that premiered at Sundance Film Festival, which I've seen as a documentary. It's quite an amazing sort of really detailed focus about Stephen's life and his progression through the disease and what happened to him at the end. So unfortunately, Stephen died in 2006 at the age of 37. And had a wife and a young son. But in the process, his family just developed an enormous amount of expertise around ALS. And so if you flip to the next slide, they started the ALS Therapy Development Institute, which I said was a non-profit biotech company that focused on gene therapy and stem cell research into ALS. But through that process, they got quite frustrated by the length of time that it takes to run these sorts of clinical trials, and the fact that patient information and research information is typically private and proprietary. So from there, the family shifted to Patients Like Me, which is a much more open source way of thinking about disease. I want to hand over to Mark about that.
So if you just go to the next slide, I want to tell you guys what it's like just a little bit to interact with this website. I actually went on there because I was excited when Caroline proposed this idea that it was a patient, because I formerly worked as a caregiver for someone with multiple sclerosis. And I wanted to see what this would be like. So the first thing I did was I hopped right on and I signed up, said I'm a caregiver. And just to sum it up, the three main things that I learned from using this website about how it works are that it's immense power to help you track elements of your experience with patients and your healthcare sort of outcomes, labs, all these different things. And also the power to help you make comparisons, which is very interesting. So multiple sclerosis is very different for every different person who has this disease. And it's kind of interesting as you go through it that this website allows you to compare yourself to others in this community. Who else is taking fish oil as a supplement for their diet? What percentage of people in this age group have this symptom? The other main utility is making connections, both with other patients who share your experience, and very importantly with clinical trials, researchers, and other people that are going to advance this cure for the disease. If you go to the next slide, I'll just one of the other main things is how incredibly rich this website is. So if you see on the left, these are all the different things you can track and do as a patient or caregiver on this website. I was spending time thinking about you can actually look at the quality of life, and you can take these every single day. You can track every single day different health outcomes. A lot of diseases that have a physical aspect have an emotional and social aspect. You can track over time which aspects of them are going up or down and how they're trending, and also how they correlate with different treatments. So that's just sort of how incredibly detailed and interactive it is. Go to the next slide. Here's something else you can do. So once you took the survey for the day, you can compare yourself to other patients who also have multiple sclerosis, like I just said. I'm going to blow through these because there are so many things on this website, and you should all check it out,
especially if you know anyone who has a chronic illness. Here's something really amazing that you can do. You can put in your disease, your age, your gender, and your zip code, and it will tell you if there are clinical trials happening in your area. I don't know about you, but for me, one of the stories I've experienced in my life is if someone you know finds out they have cancer, one of the first things people might want to know if it's a late-stage cancer is, are there any clinical trials I can be part of? And this is an amazing way to connect people to those opportunities. Next slide. So this shows that what I found out from this thing, one of the opportunities that the person that I worked as a caregiver for is eligible for, and all the detail and who you need to contact, and the details of that specific clinical trial. The other great thing I was talking about is the connection ability, that you can go and you can connect with other people who are experiencing similar questions and problems, and it's incredibly open source in the sense that I could actually look at this person. I don't know who they are, this specific person, but I can see, if you go to the next slide, I can see basically who they are. I can see what their symptoms are, which at first I was a little nervous that it is creepy, but you don't know who these people are, and actually there's so much rich information about what other people are experiencing. And look how amazing this website is. It knows that if you're someone with multiple sclerosis, it knows what kind of things are going to come up for you. So it's very detailed in its approach. It knows one of the first things it asks when I log in and said multiple sclerosis, it gave the list of all the most common drug treatments. And for a patient, you might not maybe know the whole long name of the drug, but it's going to help and guide you through that. Here are some of the forums of where you can connect with people and discuss. And this is another part of the. This is an interesting connection with some of the other projects we've talked about. There's an actual gamification element to encourage patients that you can earn these stars by completing more information, and that will help you keep better records.
So Helen has touched on why it's a value to yourself as a patient, and I'm just going to discuss why it's a value externally to the community, particularly the medical community. It works on the principle of open data, that if it's publicly available, other people can look at the data, use the data, analyse it in parallel to try and find value. The actual business model, you may be wondering, how do these guys make money? They're not a non-profit. The business model is that they de-identify and package the data for pharmaceutical and medical devices companies. So they, in that respect, have like sustainability in the model. And as Caroline mentioned, because the data is live and the sample sizes are so large, hopefully there will be some positive benefits in hastening research process. And the fact that the pharmaceutical companies are buying the data suggests then there is actually like value there to be tapped. So some challenges. The data is self-reported, so there's obviously questions around the integrity of the data. People need to have sufficient incentive to provide their data over the medium and longer term if you want sort of longitudinal data. But that, I think, as Nana mentioned, there's obviously strong personal reasons why you would want to provide that, so that doesn't seem to be a major challenge. There's a lot of illnesses that are covered, and I'll come to that in a moment, but obviously some of the sample sizes for illnesses are very large. The MS community is about 26,000, but for other conditions that are not as large. But having said those challenges, they seem rather minor given the success of the site. There's approximately 1,200 conditions that people who are members have, and there's, as you can see, upwards of 145,000 patients. And as we previously mentioned, this model hopefully sustainable because there's way to monetize it and there's interest from the broader medical community. You can see from our interest that it seems like a pretty powerful platform, and if you have a chronic illness yourself or someone you love does it, we recommend you get on it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to call up Brittany, Diane, Will, Laura, Tyler, and Park. This next group was faced with the challenge stemming from DSNI. A staff member had this idea of a cultural punch card of some kind, a way to connect parents, particularly of young children, with the great artistic resources of Boston. So guys?
Thank you. Okay, so our team, Diane and Mark, Presi, Will, Shara. So we were tasked, as Susan just mentioned, with thinking about how to connect W Street residents, families, and children with. And so I was talking to a bunch of great people in Dublin and around Boston, and just imagining anything that was possible to come up with like technological real community. The question we were posed was, as you mentioned, think about Aisha and Irish as we think about the idea of a cultural card. Something similar to like you go to your coffee shop and have an award card where you go there 10 times a day. So the question is really, what if W Street parents and people really have better, more affordable access to the vast array of cultural spectrum around Boston, which we have. And we started by asking two main questions. First, what cultural institutions are already working well already in Dublin and across Boston? And secondly, what barriers might we need to overcome to connect some of them with Boston cultural institutions? And so we began our process, as all of the other groups have, with talking to great people who know stuff a lot better than we do. We talked to people who are parents themselves, people who are familiar with technology, people who are familiar with the kind of cultural institutions that exist around Boston, and who have had some experience working in finding ways to connect neighbors and residents together, which is about building community. And so from these great people, we sort of gathered a bunch of things that some of their key concepts we heard a lot come up with the idea of wanting three things to do with their family, wanting better information that was easier to access around the kinds of activities and events that are happening that could be relevant to them. And then also the idea of sort of bridging communities in Boston, even though it's pretty small, and extremely hard at times because like you're the looks in your own community, and so finding ways to step outside of what your comfort zone might be really interesting. And then also we wanted to make sure we thought about whether cultural activities are relevant to parents. And we also are trying to consider what the event element will as well, and so we know that the event already uses tax messaging, rewards cards with the DPI program, and use parent needs to reach out to them. And so from these discussions, we basically came up with these 4 themes that emerged that are going to guide our solutions. And so the 4 main themes are awareness, access, appeal, and affordability. So in terms of awareness, it's really just thinking about what's out there in Boston, right? What is out there in terms of community events, a free thing that happens every Sunday that I don't know about, or something that special activity that happens maybe there's a book festival that happens in the fall every year. Think about how do you get the information out about what's around what's possible. Secondly, access, really just around literally getting from Dublin to these institutions. If you look at a map, you can see that a lot of the major cultural institutions across Boston are a little bit further out into the primary access area, not really finding ways to get information about how to actually access, get information from Dublin outside into cultural institutions. So the appeal is really about, well, we wanted to make sure we always have access to those different cultural groups and people lobby groups really are thinking about in terms of what they want to do. We don't want to sort of push one culture on people. Instead, think about the diversity of cultures that we're hoping to share across the state. And then finally, affordability is just the cost of getting there and the cost of the different kinds of institutions.
And so, keeping all of those goals in mind, we developed a cultural awards card ecosystem. And so, basically took the technology advances that Dudley has already established and comfortable with and added a few more in there, and also the community element that Dudley already does so well to link families and cultures together. So, it starts with the Dudley Cultural Festival. I'll get into each of these, but broadly, we'll leverage the parent ambassadors and the neighborhood that we already have right here and all the activities that are happening to get people engaged, and then link them to this sort of cycle of technology that involves computers and outreach through Facebook, SMS for people who have cell phones, and that can be a regular cell phone or a smartphone,
And then this cultural rewards card that will hold points basically on it that you can, and Dudley, we feel like the DSNI and the Dudley community should decide what the rewards specifically will be, but two ideas that we have that I'll get into a little bit more are, reinvest in the community with the rewards, like buy a sub at the local sub shop, or, rewards towards another cultural event. And you can partner with one of the local cultural organizations or even some of the larger cultural organizations, or potentially the libraries, for example, that also have free tickets. And then finally, once people are involved in that cycle, providing some transportation awareness about how to literally get there, because again, a lot of the feedback we got about why people aren't accessing these cultural resources is literally that they just don't know how to get there, or there's not enough incentive to get on the bus. So let's start with the registration and outreach at the multicultural festival. So what we envision is that these parent ambassadors will use an iPad or some, they can actually just go around as individual people and make connections with parents who have children from 0 to 12 and give them a card that has a unique identifier on it that's already being used by the Thrive and 5 initiative, and link that card to their cell phone number. So basically you just take your cell phone, you text, a number, and then that links the card that you get to your cell phone. So then the cell phone provides information and points. So I'll show you. You receive info basically once you're registered into the system, you'll get a text message that says, hey, on Monday at 3:30, a bunch of people are going to go to the bus stop and go and take advantage of this $1 access to the Children's Museum for today. One of the pieces of feedback that we got from Kate from Thrive and 5 is that families, for some reason, like to go together on field trips. Some communities provide buses, but we haven't been able to leverage, probably it's pretty resource intensive to be able to provide buses. So the next best thing we think is at least to let people know that a group will be going to the proper bus stop at a certain time to create an incentive for people to feel like there's community around going. Once you get to the location, number 2, you can check in. So you can use your SMS. You'll go to the front desk of the, like the Children's Museum and say, hey, I'm here from the Dudley Street community. They give you a little code. You type it in. This is like the punch card piece, and it's kind of fun for kids, to type it in, and then it says, hey, 60 points goes on your card. Or you can swipe your card. You can do it either way. Essentially, we're creating, again, this ecosystem where there are multiple ways that you can check in the location. But the only way it'll work is if you're actually there, because your cell phone actually knows where you are when you're typing in, right? So there's some accountability there. And I think, Dudley, we have to talk about, how many points can you get per quarter or something, just so people aren't working the system. But maybe there are benefits of working the system. Like I use the Children's Museum like every single day. So and then, so number 3 is that you earn points. And then, you get reports on the fact that you earn points. If you have a smartphone, you can go on the Facebook app and see all the different spots that you visited, and each one gets marked off when you get there so that you can kind of see progress that you've made. And, it feels like a bigger experience, as well as seeing where maybe other people have visited. So it's not just your experience, like the experience of the local community. So the card carries points, like I said, and in addition to points, it also carries data. I think we all know, those of us who have worked in organizations or run organizations, one key element of providing services to a community is being able to track who actually uses those services. Being able to see which cultural organizations or events are actually interesting to the community is going to help create events that continue to be appealing. And then being able to see which people actually go to which events will help you target and tailor your outreach better. The Facebook application basically does all the same things that I discussed on the smartphone. You can see on this map where all the sites are. You'll be able to see, which bus stop you have to get off at. But the other advantage of having the Facebook app is that you can start talking and providing feedback about which events you like and which events you didn't like. So this is where we're doing like a community building element, and also kind of honing in on that, that the events have to be appealing, right? Like maybe nobody likes going to ballet, and this is where the community can start talking about which events are right for my kid Guardian community and which ones do we really relate to and which ones are not right for us. And there continues to be sort of a dialogue around that isn't just about sort of unidirectional, hey, these are things that we should be doing, but something that is more community, organically coming out of the community. And then finally, the bus stop. And Will was kind enough to make us a model of this bus stop. And also we have some images that Taylor put up there, great mock-ups. So the bus stop that we have in mind, although again we want to think about which bus stop we want, is the one right next to the market, next to the mural, the one right by the school there on Dudley Street. Is it Langdon? What's the name of it? Langdon, right? Yeah. So, but I mean, it could be another one, but we figured that one was good. You already have a bus stop. It's already next to a mural, which kind of makes you think about culture. And we envision having a cultural kiosk where you can see on the map the actual, the T-map with all the different major cultural sites marked up. And on the days when there's actually, a free event, it'll be highlighted in one way or another, so that you'll see where the affordability, the affordability field will be there. You can also, and these are suggestions, right? Like one of the things we talked about was making an actual screen that shows you what's happening in a particular, like in the Children's Museum, because again, about awareness and about appeal, it's like that place is so far away. I don't even know what happens there, but if you actually see a live cam of like kids walking through the museum on a regular basis, like that has some appeal. And also, the nice thing about the bus stop, as I wrote at the top here, is that it draws new people into the museum. So maybe people that you don't necessarily see as a cultural museum, but everybody's walking by that bus stop. It's like the major bus stop in Dundee, right? So it's a good way to move people in. And then we also had, advertisements on the side of the bus saying you literally have to take this bus to get to the ITA. So it's like this one here, not just any bus. And I think, I think that's.
We started to do a little brief beginning of the implementation plan, clearly to be determined by the DSM curriculum. So setting it up by the festival, the technology cycle, and the bus stop itself. Basically, the first step before you even do anything is to really think about which cultural institutions you want to target and recruit people from those institutions to attend the festival and showcase the opportunity. We've made a little brochure that has information about career opportunities that are free or cheap. That could be a great start for your list of like started in terms of who you want to bring stuff. Like potentially the festival these institutions bring like a moving showcase to the festival. And then you would develop relationships with those institutes over time that can try to reward find ways to get information and like that. But it's not really required a volunteer developer, hopefully, who would be the person who would find the way to connect that system and Facebook application and the card itself, and then find a way to bridge that with the relationships culture map, the one itself. And then finally the WhatsApp, because this would be a collaboration with the city to find a way to figure out which components of it you actually want to implement, and then sort of find a way to do that. And so our next phase is our financial projections, which are very rough because it's basically all individual. Like a volunteer developer, and like building relationships. A lot of times, if you get a group together from a community organization like DSI, the museum institution will have programs already in place to bring stuff like that. There already are deals being offered, actually. That's most of the places that we check out. So it's really about leveraging what's already available through the technology. And then on the pricing of the classic culture punch cards, we put a wording which is right at 5 votes, but it hasn't worked out yet. But they basically have already, it could potentially get some cost. It seems like they've already committed to that. You're signing like 3 months worth of signatures or something. So seems like maybe that will be supported or already get on the election.
Okay, fantastic. I love this ecosystem. It's everything. Right. Questions for these guys?
Just one question about the card. Do you expect to use the really using FS to keep track of the lot, or is it just sort of generically?
So you wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have to know where. So I don't want to your not necessarily, but so theoretically you could have a card that was just attached to your phone. So cell phones aren't really. Right, and the points are on the card, so you can use it anonymously if you want. Obviously there are advantages to data collection, and so you want to leave it to the discretion of the organization that was tracking the information. The nice thing again about this card is that Thrive and Hub is already committed to tracking the data, and so you have an organization that actually is interested in the data as opposed to just sitting out there.
And
one thing about the field trip aspect. A lot of the museums have a program in place where if a nonprofit or group like DSNI applies, then you get like 25 free tickets to go on a single day to go to really like any of the ones that are listed, and that would be a great way to start getting people going because it's totally free. So far.
Thank you guys. All right, let's bring up. So Anon, Danielle, Elizabeth, Katie, and Morgan. Thank you. It's great. So another great asset of Dudley is its investment and interest in its charter school. And we're very excited about the launching of this charter school. And this group has been charged with thinking about how the charter school can better communicate with people in the neighborhood and neighborhood communicate with the charter school. So let's see what they come up with.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle. This is Morgan, Katie, Elizabeth, and Anon. We want to talk to you all about a potential community engagement tool for the Dudley Street Neighborhood Charter School. So just thinking of just a brief overview of our agenda. So I'm going to talk to you about the actual assignment or research process and the goals and vision. And then I'm going to kick it off to Morgan, who's going to actually walk you through our prototype. And then Katie's going to talk to you about the details of the back end of how that prototype will be modeled. And then we'll circle back to the cover timeline. So the assignment was really beginning with this visioning question around how can we really get the community to engage the school in a way that it's forth and that it really becomes sort of acting as one, and that the school and community life are really linked together. And to address that challenge, we were trying to come up with a sort of set of tools that would help enable the school to really connect with the community and be recognized in the larger community. And so to that end, we're going to focus tonight on one tool, but in the process of getting to this one tool, we sort of stumbled on lots of other ideas and also lots of other resources, and so we can talk about those here. So in terms of our research process, we have talked to lots of teachers, administrators, people who know a lot more about technology than we do about how this might work. And we'd like to highlight one people who have sort of been instrumental in the process, a sort of key point in which we needed some direction or some specific guidance, and they were really able to help us out. The first is Deb Social, who is with us here this evening. And Deb was really, as a former principal, particularly helpful in helping us think about what are the constraints of the school in terms of its continual day-to-day operations, of what are the ways that technology can really support a school in those day-to-day activities and in sort of making that sense with the community. The second is Judith Kerlin's part of the son of Hanane, who's the city and community leader, but was also really helpful in helping us think about the way that DSNI and the community has really organized itself and how the vision has evolved over time. And sort of where they are now in that process, which is fantastic at anchoring us there. And next, Adam Greenfield, so when we got to the phase of coming up with our prototype, Adam at Urban Sale in the U.S. was really helpful in thinking about how we might refine those prototypes, but also thinking about get those prototypes really targeted and connected to specific effective purposes, and that we weren't trying to do two things with one tool, but the things that we were doing were both high priority and effective in that way. And then lastly, we talked to Chris Jones last week, who's a board member of both DSNI and the Dudley Street Neighborhood Charter School, and he was really helpful in helping us thinking about the school's vision and where they're thinking about community engagement, and really get to the larger vision of not only just the school, but all the other schools in the community, and eventually the Dudley village of schools, and that they're sort of infinitely intertwined with the larger. So as we sort of narrowed in on that vision statement or that vision question, we wanted a tool that did three things very clearly. The first is to inform the community about what's happening with students. So what are students learning? How are they progressing academically? How are they progressing behaviorally? So something that really targeted that. The second is knowledgeable about the school's goals and the way that they can become sort of unofficial ambassadors for the school and really think about what's happening at the charter school and take that not only to the Dudley community but outside the community as well. And the third piece is sort of something that creates a level of action or actionable engagement with the community, that they know what the school needs on a sort of day-to-day basis and are able to support with a car wash or something happening in the school that will really bring them in and establish that connection.
Sure. So let's get into it a little bit more. First, some of the hypotheses that we based on. And the first is when you're trying to inform the engagement community, active instead of passive, instead of sending out an email and a newsletter. Let's try and actually involve them and get them excited for something. The second is a very simple concept that people like games. Games are fun. And you've seen a bunch of games like Just 40-something million users, something like Free Write that people involved in an issue and interested just through a simple game. So our idea is a simple, regularly updated, and interactive game. It's built around the school's curriculum, and we'll incorporate announcements, volunteer opportunities, and much more. So we're calling this Pop Quiz, and we'll run through it real quick and get in a little bit more about those goals and a little bit more about how it's So Pop Quiz, also we are not designers, so it's about the structure. Structure rather than making it look pixel. Keep that in mind. So the first thing that we talked about was trying to inform people about the school, about what it's doing, about what's happening. Next slide. So in these initial, you would sort of click and say, okay, let's play, and you would get these loading screens with announcements, very simple announcements, just to inform you some quick hits with 5 seconds. And then you would get here to level 1. Level 1, of course, is kindergarten. And again, we're informing here. We're saying, look, this is Mrs. Barnes. Let's say it's teacher, so you get to meet her, and you could maybe have an option to learn more about her classroom. So we get started with the game. So you start out in level 1, so we're in kindergarten, and we ask kindergarten type questions. So the curriculum, as in most schools, will be built around units. Right? So one unit will be around water, for example. One unit could be around infants or animals. And so we want the questions to fall in line with each unit. Each unit is about a month, maybe 6 weeks. So we imagine this updating every 6 weeks. So here's the first question. You get to touch your answer, and go ahead. And yeah, you were right. You did it. So the questions would lag 1 unit because we want the students to be involved in creating. We want this to be part of the curriculum, built into the curriculum, and therefore making the community aware of it. So hopefully we envision the students and the student teachers, which would be an important part of the school, working to develop and choose questions. We also think that would be a draw for parents and guardians, maybe friends and kids themselves to be able to come by and play the game if it's themselves or their friends or their children in the game. Next slide, please. Now, in between every few questions or each level, we imagine sort of advertising screens. Now, instead of buy ad or something, you would get an ad for an event coming up. Now, this is rather than the little announcements that come in the loading screen, these are more ways to get involved, something a little bit more robust. So in this one, for example, you have the option to sign up, learn more, or you actually have to actively click and say, no, let's continue on to the other one, whereas before the loading screens were a bit more passive, just sort of get you with some good information. And here we go with another question. You can get back into the game. Go ahead, please. And again, we got it right. That's wonderful. So it's important here that we're getting the curriculum into the community as well. People know what the school is doing. They know what they're learning. Maybe they know kids in the community. Maybe they can sort of talk to them like, oh, I heard you were learning about water or amphibians or whatever. Frogs are reptiles. That would be a question. That's part of it. So then you say, hey, that's kindergarten, you can move on to level 2, which would be first grade, of course. So we hope to sort of inform about the school itself, about the students, about the teachers, about what's going on there, involve people through volunteer opportunities, get them interested and engaged in the curriculum itself, and really just sort of meet the school and feel invested in the school. And so that is generally how the game would go. Now we can imagine it on multiple platforms and things.
Right, so that's kind of the dream, and then we wanted to talk and think through a little bit about what it would look like to actually get this in the field and to see it deployed. So we believe that this has potential to work across multiple different platforms. We're most excited about starting kind of on the far, I guess you were left, sorry, my right, with the kiosk idea, because that's what we'll be focused on primarily for this presentation. But we also believe it has potential to be an SMS game, obviously Facebook, online, if we see it on the DSNI window, that would be amazing, and as well as an app. And so we believe that over time it could be deployed across multiple platforms. Obviously, whichever platform you're using, you're going to be engaging a different sector of the community, reaching out to different people. And you can, of course, think about those targeting. You know, if you're looking to outreach to sector X, you can do so through the most appropriate platform. Okay, so we also wanted to think about costs. Initially, when we were thinking about the kiosks, we were thinking kind of a classic kiosk that you see in a library, and those were costing around $5,000 each. It was a little expensive for our taste. So we started thinking about an iPad. What if you just had an iPad that was in some sort of enclosed space, that therefore, you know, it'd be stable, it'd be there, but an iPad is obviously much less expensive than buying this whole kiosk. We found this great company online that does these iPad enclosures, and so thinking about having one deployed in the community and one here at DSNI, we're going to, that would be around $2,000, more or less. And that's for kind of the infrastructure. Then also looking at the development costs vary dramatically depending on who you're talking to. We called some professional companies and got quotes as high as $30,000 for developing an interactive app like this. We think that we can find something substantially lower. We have friends of ours who have created apps, who have created websites, and we think that you could do this for certainly under $5,000, even if you were to do it professionally staffed. And I'm sure that the city has contacts, and you guys have a good estimate of how you could bring that cost down. But that's kind of the ballpark of what we were looking at for both project and infrastructure costs. We thought a bit about potential locations in the neighborhood. By far our favorite, because it was recommended to us by everyone we spoke to, was Ideal Sub Shop. Apparently lunchtime this place is just jammed. We've got long lines and lots of people with idle time. Speaking with some of the developers and designers we were able to interview, they told us you're basically looking for people who are standing around, kind of waiting with maybe not a lot to do. And the sub shop seemed like the perfect place to do that. We'd obviously also like to have one here at DSNI, because we believe that you want to, really put that foot forward of community engagement here in the building, have that presence for people visiting. Again, the window would be a wonderful opportunity to do that also. We have a few other places here, perhaps for future, or perhaps if it's an iPad, you can either travel to these, if that's something the community would want to do. So we just thought about that a bit. We also thought that it's about data management. So this is thinking about who's going to be creating and updating and kind of keeping this game running, both in the content and kind of the contracts. So starting with content, questions will be created by the teachers. So, they're going to create a handful of questions as they start a unit. Let's say I'm about to start a unit on water, right? I'm going to create 10 to 15 questions about water. And then also created by the students. So at the end of the unit, then the students would be able to submit questions based on what they've learned. And then, maybe even write on the screen and say, thank you to, Tommy Jones for submitting this question. And then, that would, of course, get Tommy excited about sharing this with his friends and family, inviting them to play the game. And we see that as the student involvement as an outreach tool, as well as just a wonderful way to get them, interested and involved in technology and really get to buy into this game. The outreach screens, so those screens, kind of advertising screens, we call them outreach screens, would be created by the administration, because principals of these schools that help us learn are very in touch with what they need, what students, when they need it, what's coming up. And so they can be on top of the ball to create these, obviously easy back end to punch in the information that they need on the time. And then it will be updated by whoever's maintaining the school's website. The school already has a website. They know that they intend to keep that going. And so there will be a tech team. We can see them kind of updating this weekly as the information comes in to keep everything fresh and keep people interested in the game. On the contract side, we kind of thought through the roles that the City of Boston, the school itself, and DSNI would play. We're hoping that the City of Boston can help create the system or perhaps find someone who can. And definitely the school itself would be, of course, in charge of updating, advertising, tracking performance, and any sort of grant application or other types of perhaps award applications or anything that would be in the future for this program a couple of years down the line. And then DSNI would also help with advertising, making the game known within the community and help liaise with local businesses to find the proper locations for these kiosks or even for advertising the game. We recognize both the strengths and weaknesses of our program. We think its biggest strength is that it's fun, and to our knowledge has never before been tried. We haven't seen a tool like this used in community outreach, and we spoke to, I think, all the teachers and administrators that we know to see if they have anything exciting like this, and it did seem to be a really fresh idea. The fact that it pulls you not only into the school but into the curricula So like Morgan said, you can ask, a second grader, like, hey, I heard you just learned about alligators. Tell me all, the fact that you can actually plug into that, we think was a huge plus. The accessibility through multiple platforms, the direct student involvement, and the fact that it's pretty simple to maintain, right? It's something a tech team could do, the website team could stay on top of that. The weaknesses is that teachers are very busy, and so perhaps relying on them to create questions would be an additional burden. It's something you'd certainly buy in from the staff to do. Limited reach, perhaps kiosks. Obviously one person can play a kiosk at a time. So if that's our first round of deployment, we're not going to be reaching perhaps as robust a group as we're hoping for. They might just play the game and not actually get involved in the tool. We recognize that's a possibility, but we still think there are benefits even if they're just playing the game. And then, of course, the startup costs. We've also thought through targeting and testing. So basically, once if DSNI were to decide to move forward with this idea, they could sit down and think about what groups they're really looking to reach out to, and then go through a testing platform to make sure that the game is working for these groups. We even kind of walk through how we would think about testing this platform. And then finally, we thought through indicators and evaluation. So let's say, for example, that you really wanted to reach out to the Spanish-speaking community. You could track performance specifically on whether or not the tool has been effective in helping to engage that community. We do think that you can also track kind of more ongoing, such as the number of people playing the game, the conversion rates, the number of people who are actually getting involved with the tool through the game, and then, like I mentioned, specific target groups. And we do also think we should track the back end of how regularly it's being updated by the teachers and students, and to make sure that kind of the school side is working with the game as well as the community engagement. So keep an eye on both ends there. We do believe that after a couple months in the field, there should be a survey to see how it's doing. Just a survey from the target groups you were hoping to reach, and then looking at your data should give you a pretty good feel for how the system's doing.
Just thinking ahead a little bit about potential summer testing and timeline. I think when we thought about this, there were really 5 sort of work streams that can, for the most part, be happening simultaneously. There's the building of the app, there's designing and refining the content, which happens information to school staff. There's acquiring the infrastructure for the iPad and enclosure. And then there's establishing relationships, in this case, ideal sub-shops, to make sure that they both understand the technical parts of it, but also how the tool is really serving the community. And then there's the response of testing with target groups that Katie alluded to. We feel like this is something that you could do on an 8 to 10 week timeline, and would hopefully align well with the celebrations in August we've already talked about, and the other groups we've already talked about, that you could launch it at that time. And then I think just in some, so we have these sort of 3 target things we want, right? We really want to inform people about what's happening with kids, inform them about the school so they can be ambassadors, and then to give them actionable things that really engage them. And we feel like this is one tool that gets you there, but it's sort of a holistic part of a sort of community engagement mechanism, so portfolio, that the school is, I know, thinking about developing, and the school is thinking about developing the school. And so we like to think about it in that context, and we think this can get the school going one step further in that context. Thank you.
How is the kiosk program? Is it on the Wi-Fi?
We imagine it being on the Wi-Fi. We even thought perhaps it would be easiest to develop it at your website. But if the kiosk, maybe the students can only access that website. Of course, whatever would be easiest for the designer if they prefer to do a single app or a single website.
So in talking to the designers, one of the ways to get this to multiple platforms easily is to code in HTML5. It shows up on just about any device you use, so you avoid having to do it in Android, iPhone, iPad, and a website, and you can do that once. And so this is a place where actually it may, depending on, scale is really interesting here because the one time that you design it, if you really want to invest resources, we realize $30,000 looks like a lot, but there may be an argument to make if you're planning on using multiple channels in multiple schools. It's a one-time thing, and getting the user interface right, and getting the design just to feel really engaging could be worth it. And it does, there's a wireless router, and part of the cost includes installing the router and having monthly service. And the iPad, there's ways you can do where you can either install it on a wall, which I think one of the screens you saw there was kind of just leaned up against there. There are other kiosks in there. Those are actually fairly expensive.
All right. Thank you very much. Jamal, Maria, Luis, Tara, Brian, and Patrick. Speaking of wireless and speaking of scale, something that all communities need, and particularly DSNI, is a sense of who's using what technology in the community. This very practical, concrete question that the community confronted us with. We're now looking for the presentation, so I'm going to talk briefly. This is something I personally spent a lot of my adult life thinking about, is who has access to what technology and what digital divides exist in America, and what we can count on when we're trying to reach people with all of these various projects that you kids have been designing. What devices and access can we assume is present in the neighborhood, and what points of intervention might make sense for the mayor's office and the city of Boston to bring in more access to technology, something I know that our friends from the mayor's office are very interested in. But the first step is to figure out what's there. So the question for this group, as the phone rings, wireless access here, is how do we perform a tech audit in this neighborhood? So you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. You just click the word.
Right.
I mean, thank you for that presentation.
That was exactly what we were trying to say. We wanted 4 slides just to talk about it. I'm not going to ruin my slides.
Oh, now, your slides are beautiful. Let's do it.
So, I mean, well, in Susan's slides, and Susan has it, you should come up with this nice slide. To this couple of, sorry.
Yeah.
There you go. So this couple of groups, came together, a group of students, actually not just students, school students, sorry. Yeah, bunch of students who are great students. And college students.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had a lot of interest and passion to help use technology to solve problems. With the SNI community that is constantly trying to solve the problems the community challenges they're facing. And the city of Boston is already actually using technology to solve lots of these problems. To try to use technology to solve these problems. But actually, you back. So we're all excited about using technology, and then we try to ask questions about so how many people have access to the internet, or what kind of cell phone devices, or what kind of technology is built in the community. And we found that the challenges were so great that this information was available. So we had this click in our head. If you go to the next one, and we just decided to draw a line to all these ideas. This next one, and we came up with and they put a tech audit, which was the end of season presentation. And so based on the SNI's needs for information on access and usage, technology in the city residents, we came up to a series of experts and residents to sort of try to find a better way to get at this information in a sustainable way. There wasn't a one-time thing that it could be repeated. So, for example, Julie Skurline helped us to understand the limitations of a door-to-door survey, and Dan Norris, which is helped me a lot. Thank you very much. From Next Goes Home, showed us some of the previously residents' needs for technology, and also Barry Choi helped us challenge how this design can be done. So I mean, we came up with a couple of options that Jamal will help us out, which is based on actually a really interesting design based on provision of services and data collection, not just data collection, because we want the community it collects data to provide services. So I'll hand on to Jamal.
Okay, and just transitioning from that, one of the challenges in collecting a survey is you're asking people to do something that they really don't want to do. You're asking them for their time. So if you go and knock on somebody's door or call them or send them out an email, they're like, survey, I'm busy, I'm at work, or I'm watching my kids, so why should I fill out this survey? So one of the, I guess, the incentives, one thing we thought of, we could provide people with free Wi-Fi as an incentive. So if you don't have internet at home and you want to get free internet just to fill out a survey, that sounds like a good deal. So we thought people would be drawn to this idea. And can you go back one? Okay. So we came up with this mock-up survey, just asking basic questions, and we'll show you an example in a little bit. But basically, like, do you have a computer? What type of computer do you have? And one of the things we want to do is make sure we have this in not only English, but Cape Verdean and Spanish, so it can be useful for everyone in the community. Okay, so this is pretty much the radius, the area of the area that we want to cover. Realistically, in a 3-month period before we can get to the grant application, that's not going to be possible or feasible. So we want to kind of focus in on, we think our first option is to focus in on 4 areas, and these are just our preliminary thoughts. We could put those spots, temporary spots in any area that can reach, based on our conversations with different experts, can reach up to 250 foot radius. But Pat talked to a guy, and there's these things called repeaters. So if you put them, so you have the portable device. So basically how it works, you get a commercial router, it's about $500 to $1,000. You get a 3G or a 4G device, plug it in. It runs on a battery, so you can, have it for about 3 hours, and then you need to plug it in after 3 hours. So that's basically the infrastructure you need. Now to scale it, you have these things called repeaters. So you can set it up like one router in DSNI, for example, and you can put repeaters in different areas. So that'll broaden your range to about 800 feet radius. So maybe you can set up 4 different areas with repeaters. Now there's different types of collection. Now with the passive collection, there's some benefits and there's some drawbacks to passive collection. One of the benefits is you get the most accurate information because the router is going to tell you exactly what time you log in the network. It's not I think it was 12 o'clock. It's exactly what time, exactly what type of device you're using, all that type of information, specific technical information. Now, what it's not going to give you is specific personal information. So if I log into the network, it's not going to know that I'm a male. It's not going to know how old I am. It's just going to know I'm a person at DSNI on the network. So we want to have this way to actively collect this type of data, this type of demographic data, which is important for the grant because one of the questions they had is how many children have access to technology. So that's a specific question that the passive collection is not going to answer. So these two will actually complement each other because you get specific information coupled with demographic information. Okay, so there's a video too.
Sorry, guys. Thanks. Wow.
Okay. So this is, I guess, a walkthrough of how the survey will work. Once this works. So basically, you log in to, if it started?
Yep.
Okay, you log in the system, and in order to get access to the Wi-Fi, this is for a person who hasn't actually logged in before, so this is a first-time user. So you have to fill out this survey before you can get access to the Wi-Fi. So you go through, answer these basic questions. Do you use email? Do you have internet at home, etc. And as you can see, the Wi-Fi login information, that would be for a person who's already done this. So once you complete the survey, you get like a username. You get basically access to the Wi-Fi system, and occasionally you would have to answer a question here and there, but you wouldn't have to go through the complete survey. And you basically sign up for the Wi-Fi. But the survey is your ticket, and this can be actually a lot of the groups talked about using surveys to gather information. So this could be a way to kind of merge the different ideas into, instead of 4 or 5 different surveys, people want to take a lot of surveys. You can have one survey and one method of implementing. Now, as far as we can't kind of come up with this model of picture like this is a map of the area. So the green spots on the map show where you have a lot of data, where a lot of people are giving you data, and it's significant enough for you to get the information you need. Now the gray and especially the black area is where, okay, we're not getting any information from that area. Maybe we need to do some supplementary access in those areas. Okay, so this is our option 2. Our second idea is basically to have a portable hotspot. So basically, like you set up, you rent a van or a truck on the weekend, go around on Saturdays to different areas in the neighborhood. And again, it's basically the same technology can be used. You just would need it to have it on the truck. But then you would set up chairs and tables and maybe a tent or whatever. And basically, you can actually have someone, maybe from Tech's home, who can sit. This is for people who aren't familiar with technology. They can actually go and, like maybe an elderly woman or man who has never used the internet. So somebody can sit there and say, okay, I'm going to show you how to set up an email or whatever, and in the process, they're going to take the survey.
So like in our interview with Deb, she mentioned that recently Tech Goes Home graduated some senior participants. So we thought it'd be a good idea to invite them to participate so that senior citizens who come won't feel intimidated asking younger students for help. Because they might find, well, these young people know everything, or actually I don't want to ask them.
And going back to the areas that need supplementation, one thing we were thinking about is to have kids or volunteers, whoever, go around with iPads to church or to schools, different type of community events, and just go up to people and ask them, fill out the survey on the iPad, just so they can get the extra information in the areas that we couldn't address. And this is like kind of like a last resort. Is to just buy the data, like go to Comcast or Verizon and say, can we buy this data for you guys? One of the issues with buying the data is privacy issues. That there's competition because cable companies compete and they don't want their proprietary information out there. And also, it's private. People's personal information, you can't just put it out there without their permission. Okay, so these are the 2 options. And we think it's reasonable to put these out by July 23rd, which is the date when the grant application is due. And we're thinking we could basically April. Okay, so basically during May. May, you get the technology, you purchase all the equipment, hire a software developer just to set up the web. It has to go through a website. So somebody would have to develop the web server, and that's a one-time fee because once the server and everything is set up, it can scale throughout the whole neighborhood.
Translate the survey.
Yeah, someone to translate into Cape Verdean and Spanish. So that's when we came up with a budget for these different things. Yeah, we'll hand that out. Okay, and then June and July, we'll collect the data. So that's when there's any questions.
Any questions? Anybody? Yeah, Jason.
So buying the data from the ISPs, why again is this not a viable option?
So actually, I tried to get in touch with Comcast. I spoke with one of their VPs of public relations, and as far as I can understand, they actually don't, like the ISPs, don't like to give out their proprietary data. What they will do is, if you are trying to advertise with them, then they will assess that data for you themselves, and then kind of use that data as an input to tell you what the best sort of advertising spot is for you in their service. But they aren't willing to give out that data just independently for you to use it for your own purpose.
Well, we do think that a conversation between the ISP and the mayor's office.
Yeah, that we might not have the leverage necessarily.
Especially, particularly if you're threatening them with free Wi-Fi, then they're losing their contract. So you would have more leverage. Right, that's a decision, whether it's ongoing service.
Do you have in mind a time frame of access to internet? I fill out my survey, how long can I use it?
Well, so the idea is once you fill out the survey, you actually, kind of the video pointed out, you fill in login information. So from that point on, like, you can log in and it's basically your card. So like once you fill in the survey once, we're not going to bother you with it again. You can just log in and use the internet as much as you want, as long as you fill out the survey.
Well, when you periodically get a question, yeah, and when you come back to log back in and use your username and password, we can ping you with additional questions, but it's shorter, so you don't have to go through the whole survey. But maybe we ask you something else that provide either DSNI, the city, or Tech Goes Home with an additional piece. So it's not such heavy lifting that you would be like, I'm not logging in.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, well, we've come to the end of this journey together, but it's just the beginning, because so many of you are going to go on into careers that will touch these questions. And you'll be thinking about how technology affects policy questions, what you could be doing for your clients to help them reach their goals. And this course, I hope, it's been an experiment, will be a franchisable thing. We can do the Kennedy School and all policy schools and law schools and business schools can do all across the country. From the lessons we've learned this term, and I hope you can give us lots of feedback about the lessons learned, we could help lots of communities craft collaborations like this that could be effective, drawing on student energy, helping students to experience what it's like to deal with clients, and think about solving big problems with great imagination. Remember that class where suddenly everything was wildly imaginative? That's great, and that doesn't happen all that often in education, so we've got to do that together. So I have many thank yous for this. First, I want to thank Kate Contreras, who is somewhere nearby. There she is. And then, of course, Dana and Chris and Nigel for being our partners throughout the entire thing and being inspirations to all of us. So thank you for And finally, and most importantly, Jason, for his graciousness and hospitality and kindness to us when we started down the street together. So thank you, Jason. Jason first brought us to the next floor and brought us to an open house. So we brought food tonight, Jason, to thank you for all of that, and so that we can stand around and have a little snack, which I think is important to any endeavor. So congratulations to all of you. And the next step is up to these guys and Dana. They're going to have to decide what happens, whether there's implementation or not, where these projects go. Yeah, Hannah.
Is there a way for us to be
whatever mechanism that is, whether it's just your emails after this, would be great.
We promise to do that. Yeah, Kate and I will make sure that happens. That's essential. And the next time we do the course, our hope is that this also leads to jobs and sort of longer engagement with the mayor's office. Because now that you've done all this work, now you, next generation students, has done all this work, wouldn't it be great to build on those relationships and have it be a multi-year, multi-month engagement rather than just the time of the term? So, but really, your feedback's going to be essential to see the other ones. Yeah, Jane.
And just to make sure, like, other than the one project we want to implement, it'd be great to get feedback on all the projects too, just to get.
Right, exactly.
I think part of our decision is going to be just how many of the projects we want to implement. So, it's not just one. So, like, one of the things, can we consider?
Yeah, please.
I mean, we're here.
Yes.
Yes, no? Should be able. So we would also want to express our thanks for gutting it out, because we know it was this was totally an experiment for us as well. But we are so bullish on this idea of trying to forge connections between higher ed and particularly students and connecting them to actual problems that are faced with communities. That this was like a critical project for us, and frankly, we've already spoken about you at 3 different conferences. So you begin seeing the course name and catchphrase sort of across a bunch of different places. We were really pleased with your willingness to sort of do this with us and be creative about this. We loved the way that there was totally this interesting learning curve. There was totally this sort of this moment at one point, where people were clearly kind of seeing the light and sort of shedding some of their inhibitions, and that was fabulous. There were some really interesting things or papers that seemed to evolve out of the process. This sort of networked or rather the platform approach to thinking about how the different projects interrelate, which I think was rather unique and interesting for us. I think in the past when we've worked with projects, we certainly have done lots of projects with the Kennedy School in the past, but nothing like this, right? They tend to be very specific, where we define a project and it's go very narrow on this. You guys went kind of in the opposite direction, went fairly broad, and so that was something really interesting to see in the approach. And so we totally applaud you. We consider you all new urban mechanics now. And as you guys go forward to conquer in the civic innovation space, definitely if you're looking for places to try out some of your crazy ideas, either these or anything else that you're sort of dreaming up on your copious free time, come back and find us. The intention is, as we said, to sort of implement as many of these as makes sense through the summer and to turn this into a pipeline, between the summer implementation of the programs, learning from them, through the school year, and then sort of constantly have this sort of refreshed sort of people and projects. So.
I think one really good. Underscore one thing, which is as much as this class is about technology, I think it's really about sort of entrepreneurship and experimentation in the area of government. And as you guys go forth in your careers, not only sort of connect with us, but keep that blank slate or dream space alive. There's a time to be really expansive with your ideas. There's a time to get really focused on sort of refining them. Don't cut short the expansive process, because that's where all the great imaginative stuff is in, and that's where we're going to solve the really pressing problems that all of you guys are going to. So I look forward to seeing all the stuff you guys are going to create in the years ahead, and however we can partner, support the two of us and Dan and our kids and help you in your ventures ahead. I know.
A little bit shocking. You are going to
what is that?
but then all the things of being don't worry, we'll come out the other side.
So that's how I always project is one of the things we need more to learning that outreach project.
That is an area where you guys know how to do West Coast. One of the guys who was coming to me, so he said, "Oh, okay, so you're, maybe you could voice it, and that's well, so if we had 10,000 people online, yeah, so anyway, it's a lot of guys that would be awesome to record. I have a job. I'm good. So my job is okay. One job. Yeah. He sat down with like 30 students and no whole class. People were like, what do you think of it? So actually, so he's like very politely saying like, I supported the proposal. He's like, well, I think we need candidates that has courage and honesty. I don't know these guys. Okay. Yeah. People can't. Thank you guys. Great opportunity.
I know the back about now. And I know where I like